Imagine you come up with an invention which you're convinced will be a huge benefit to the country. Literally make the grass grow greener. You sell it to farmers all over New Zealand and they seem pleased as punch. Then you get a knock on the door and your world starts to fall apart. You stand accused not of helping the country, but of costing it millions. That's the nightmare that Ewan Campbell faced and still faces today. Life in rural New Zealand, as good as it gets. Free-range chickens and free-range children. Healthy stock, plenty of grass, chemical-free, award-winning beef. Life was sweet here until August 2003, a representative from the Commerce Commission left the city and headed a couple of hours towards the Coromandel from Auckland, driving high into the Waihi backcountry. Posing as an undercover avocado grower, he was seeking information. He arrived at the farm of Ewan Campbell, then mission accomplished. He got 2 compact discs containing details of national significance. More than a year later, 4 investigators with a search warrant turned up, spent an afternoon at the farm and seized documents from Campbell's office. You'll be asking by now what heinous crime has taken place up here in the back blocks of Waihi. Well, was it a crime? All that's happened is that a man has invented an alternative to conventional chemical-based fertilisers, a natural system that many farmers up and down this country swear by. No one in their wildest dreams ever imagined it would cause all hell to break loose.
They just started this ginormous investigation, and I can't work out what's going on because who have we hit? There's no injured party, and the farmers keep coming, and what have I done wrong?
According to our Commerce Commission and a District Court judge, Ewan Campbell's done quite a bit wrong.
Probitus provides a multifaceted natural approach to soil management.
They say his alternative fertiliser system, Probitas, doesn't work and clobbered him with a fine of over $250,000 for false representation.
Reduced chemicals and reduced costs.
What's more, Campbell's fertilising system, says the Commerce Commission, is costing this country a whopping $5 million a year in lost productivity.
I mean, how do you actually quantify that? And how can you say that about me? I mean, look at the farm. People can work it out for themselves. The farmers come, they look at it, they go, "Phew, shit, I wish I could do this at home," and off they trot.
Look, I'm stoked with it at this stage.
One such farmer is Taranaki rugby legend and dairy farmer Andy Slater. He's been using Campbell's Probitas system for 3 years now.
If the Probitas system wasn't working, our production would have dropped to half. We'd have skinny cows everywhere and we'd be moaning our tits off, you know.
Over in the Hawke's Bay at one of New Zealand's oldest Angus stud farms, Will McFarlane has also ditched mainstream fertilisers for Probitas, citing extraordinary results.
The one thing we're noticing is a total lift in animal health and animal performance.
Even the Western Bays Golf Club just out of Tauranga has gone chemical-free. Superintendent Andrew Lockyer changed a few years back to Probitas.
There's probably not a single person that's had anything to do with this golf club over the last decade that couldn't say that in the last 3.5 years we've got as good, if not better, fairways than we've ever had.
And you won't find avocados much better than you do at John Neal's organic orchard on Matakana Island.
The farmers wouldn't put it on. I mean, we're not stupid. We look at the results and what we get from it.
There's an estimated 1,000 farmers nationwide using the Probitas soil conditioning system. We've spoken to dozens of them and they've done nothing but praise it. In fact, not one farmer complained to the Commerce Commission. So why did they prosecute?
Based on the scientific evidence accumulated to date, and based on what that product contains, and based on its claimed mode of action, it cannot work as advertised.
But maybe it does work.
Well, maybe there's the tooth fairy too.
The Commerce Commission's big gun in the case against Probitas, soil scientist Doug Edmeades.
As I've said, there's a large body of science.
So you're just doing it strictly out of the textbook, is that right?
Well, out of the textbook, that's a pejorative term. If you analyse the product, look at how it's claimed to work, you have to reach the conclusion that this stuff's ineffective.
What they're saying is that your science is voodoo science and that it can't possibly work.
Okay, well, who said it didn't work?
The expert witness.
Well, how does he know?
Well, for starters, he's a scientist and you're not.
Really? But the guts is, if the farmers are seeing a result and it's working, and my science is wrong, why is it working? Okay, tell me that, and then we'll have the answer.
The fertiliser industry in this country is a $1 billion business. 90% of farmers spend their money on conventional, chemical-based fertilisers, the majority being superphosphates and urea. And most of that comes from the two big companies, Ravensdown and Balance Agri-Nutrients.
This flow runs from east to west.
Then Ewan Campbell comes along, claiming he can do better than conventional fertiliser by, believe it or not, tapping into electromagnetic flows and using stuff like silica.
If you change the terminals around, it goes immediately into negative, which shows it as a directional flow.
Have you taken a voltmeter out and had a look?
No, I haven't, and nor would I, and nor would I encourage anyone else to do that. Because
why not?
Because we know that there are potential differences, voltage differences, at the atomic molecular level within the soil. But to say that that extends over the smallest unit of the soil, the PED, the crumbs of soil, is just absurd.
What we found out was that there is low-level electrical currents anywhere in the world, but we can actually put the right type of silica on, which actually enhances it and lifts it.
And what does that do?
Well, it lifts the nutrient availability, stimulates the microbiology, and enhances the plant production.
If Campbell's right, farmers using his fertiliser system will benefit. So if they're not complaining, who is? It was just one complaint from a Northland scientist that led to Campbell and Probitas being done for misleading claims.
How could it be misleading if they didn't have a injured party and they'd never been on a farm?
That answer can be found on the terrace in Wellington. Commerce Commission General Manager Jeff Thorne. You have to help me here. I mean, how can you do an investigation on a fertilising system if you don't go to the farms that are using it?
Well, the evidence that we have to provide is whether or not a representation has been made and whether that representation is false. And we were able to satisfy the court on both those counts.
How do you know if it's false if you've never been to a farm? If your investigators have never been to a farm?
The court examined the evidence that was presented to it and it found that those representations were false.
And in court, the judge said the case against Probitas stands or falls on the evidence of this man, the Commerce Commission's only expert witness. There's a problem here, though, isn't there, Mr. Edmeades? And that is, the farmers aren't complaining about loss of production. These farmers are saying that it's working. So they're wrong.
There are people who believe the Earth's flat. Belief is not proof. Belief is just that, belief. But it doesn't prove that a product works. For that, we need scientific tests to demonstrate a yes or it doesn't.
So why then have there been no scientific tests?
Any scientist who gets a query from a company, they would look at what this product is, what's the claimed mode of action, what does it contain, and they'd make an assessment on that basis as to whether it'd be worthwhile taking further and doing some research. In this case, we can be certain, based on the science, that the stuff is useless.
Tell Andy Slater the Probitas system he's used for 3 years now is useless, and quite smartly, shovel in hand, he'll take you down the back paddock of his Taranaki dairy farm.
We're looking at our worm life, We're looking at our root depth, okay, so how long our roots are. See, they're right down to here, so we're looking at about a 6-inch. At the end of the day, you know, you don't have to be too clever to sit down and understand that what Ewan's saying is not bullshit, it's actual.
In this case, farmers cannot tell for themselves whether that product works. They rely on the representations, and the court has found that those representations were false and misleading.
So farmers can't tell for themselves if a fertilising product is working. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it may take time for the farmers to establish that.
It annoys the hell out of me that this Commerce Commission thinks that we don't understand the science behind this. And I find it absolutely ridiculous that these people are calling into question our understanding. What planet are they on, this Commerce Commission?
Well, we've been in farming for 45 years, and if I don't know the basics of agriculture, then nobody will.
They've got to understand here that we're running multi-million-dollar businesses now, and you know, for us to survive, the bottom line has to be on the right side of the ledger. And at the end of the day, you don't do these things unless there's a return on it. And for us, there's a massive return.
So what on earth is going on here? The Commerce Commission is saying not only are these farmers wrong, but it knows how much they're wrong by. The loss to the country, $5 million in the first year alone.
They've now got to recondition their soil, and it also meant that they didn't get the productivity that they would expect. And other competitors who are selling products that they are not misleading consumers about are also missing out on sales. So it's quite a strong economic detriment to the country.
Save me from my own strangulation. Why don't they go and talk to some of the farmers? I mean, I've got so many of them said to me, oh look, we're probably 100,000 better off this year. Kiwi fruit growers getting $2.50 a tray more, or getting more trays. I mean, get a life. Who did that come from? Straight from the expert witness's mouth.
And that expert witness, Ewan Campbell, believes is in way too deep with the major fertiliser companies.
On the witness stand, he said that he shared his information with Jeff Morton from Balance Agri-Nutrients, Ants Roberts from Ravensdown. He got them to check over his brief of evidence before he brought it to court.
Let me explain. I use it. Both Dr. Roberts and Jeff Morton were ex-colleagues of mine back in MAF. I also sent it to other people for their viewpoint, so that I wasn't being given a slant. I did that to make sure that my scientific methodology was intact.
They just happen to be from Balance and Ravensdown.
Look, we're professional enough to be able to look at someone else's work and dissociate ourselves from who we work for to do that.
It's a joke. There's no way this man's independent. He's so polarised in his viewpoint. He represents a very, very polarised viewpoint. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts urea on his porridge in the morning.
You can tell him that I have porridge in the morning, and with no additives at all, apart from light milk.
But you only recommend fertilisers from Ravensdown and Balance?
No, I've recommended fertilisers from other companies from time to time.
But in the main?
It just so happens that the least cost products on the market at the moment tend to be sold by those big companies.
But in a situation like this, it's not just important that you are independent, is it? It's important that you're perceived as being independent.
Well, what they want from me is that I'm not allowed to have an opinion about anything. And that's crazy. What's
but
the point of that?
But let's have a look at it. You are here on road shows with Balance.
Yes.
Okay. You are editing their handbook.
Yes, I edited the fertiliser handbook for Balance. That was about, I think, 10 years ago.
Here, this shows that you're pretty hand in glove, the big companies. I mean, there's a fairly good reason for people to perceive you as perhaps having a conflict of interest.
The issue is, and Judge Callender touched on it in his judgment, have I modified my scientific opinion or objectivity or impartiality because of dollars? And the answer to that is definitely not.
Ewan Campbell failed to convince the judge that Doug Edmead's evidence wasn't reliable. Now he's left wondering just how his dream of a chemical-free soil conditioning system for New Zealand could turn so toxic.
I don't want to be a corporate. I actually just want to be a farmer and enjoy life. Just, you know, you've talked to my wife. She just wants her life back. I do too.
Do you feel like it's been taken away?
Yeah. Stolen. But it's worth fighting for.
Tough though.
Yeah.
They come at us with such bully tactics. And
Ewan's wife Julia was home alone when the bailiffs came and seized their 2 vehicles.
But afterwards, I was very shaken. And I fear that they come back. When? How? So I can't stay in my own home, especially on my own. I have to get out. I have to go.
To date, Ewan has refused to pay his fine of over $250,000.
Me, personally, I would probably pay and carry on with life. But he's been accused of something he hasn't done. And so I'm not going to give it to them. They'll have to come and take it and let the dirt be on their face and not mine.
So you're digging your toes in?
Well, why shouldn't I? I mean, if this is the reality of life living in New Zealand, that they can do this and not tell you what's going on and what they're trying to do to you, there's not much hope for our kids.
Ewan Campbell's battle with the Commerce Commission isn't finished yet. They've already prosecuted him over his brochures and CD-ROMs. Now they're taking him on over his videos. The court hearing's scheduled for next month. We'll be back in a moment.